Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you an exciting new feature that's coming to Python version 3.10, which is structural pattern matching. Now, this is very similar to a switch statement, if you've seen that in other programming languages, except this is much more powerful and you can do way more than you can do with most switch statements in most programming languages. In fact, the keyword for this is not switch, it is match, and you'll see why it's called that in a second as I kind of go through and give you a mini tutorial on this feature. Now, before we dive into that, I need to mention that Python 3.10 is currently in beta. So I'm filming this video on August 6th, 2021. When I'm filming this, it's in beta. I don't know the beta version exactly, but anyways, if you want to download the beta, you can do that from the link in the description from the Python website. I'm running it on my computer right now. Seems relatively stable, but things could change when this feature is released. Now, there's also a lot of other new features coming in Python version 3.10. The main one is structural pattern matching, but you also have parenthesized context managers. You have a few other random things like this that I don't care about, mostly related to syntax errors, but I will leave this document in the description in case you guys care to look at it. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into this new feature. But first, I need to talk to you about something that is not new, which is the sponsor of this video. Before we get started, I need to thank the sponsor of this video, which is AlgoExpert. AlgoExpert is the best platform to use for preparing for your software engineering coding interviews and has the highest quality coding interview practice questions. With 160 practice questions, detailed solutions in 9 of the most popular programming languages, a feature-packed browser-based coding environment, extensive test suites, and conceptual overviews and code walkthroughs for each and every problem, AlgoExpert is the best resource to use to ace your coding interviews. AlgoExpert also has a data structures crash course, coding interview assessments, and a mock interviews feature. I can highly recommend AlgoExpert as a former customer myself and now an official instructor on the platform. Get started using AlgoExpert today by clicking the link in the description and using the code TechWithTim for a discount on the platform. All right, so as promised, I'm going to show you structural pattern matching. So let's just go ahead and dive in. I will show you the syntax for a match statement. So in other programming languages, you may see something like this. You may see switch, then you have some variable here. So let's say we have x equals hello, and then maybe you switch on x, and then what you do is something like case, and maybe you do hello here as the case, and then you write something like print it is hello, and then you usually see this break keyword. Now, the Python syntax for the match statement is very similar, but the difference here is that the switch statement only allows you to directly check if this value here is equal to x. So you can have a bunch of different cases and it just checks if x is equal to these things. But with the match statement, you can actually do pattern matching, hence why it's called the match statement, not just the switch statement. Okay, anyways, let me comment all of that out and let me show you the match statement. So the match statement looks like this, very similar syntax. You match on some variable, then you define some case. In this case, I will say hello. You do a colon, and then in Python, obviously everything is indented. So we indent one block, and then we can do whatever it is that we want if this is the case for x. So here, if I print, it is hello, we'll keep that same case, and I will just add another case and show you how this actually works. So obviously you can add as many cases as you want. I will go with hi, and I will just say it is hi. All right, so if I run this here, x is equal to hello, we should see that we get it is hello printing out. So it just checks the value of x against all of these cases, checks the first case first, obviously. If that is the case, no pun intended, it prints this and skips the rest of the cases. Okay, so let's go here and make this hi. If I run this, notice you get it is hi. So that's the most basic example. You can check if some value is a bunch of other values, and some people argue this is more readable than doing like an if or elif statement, because this example right here, you can replicate using if, elif, or just multiple if statements, right? Okay, nice. So that is basic, but now what I need to show you is what's known as the default case. So notice here, if I just have an empty string, for example, nothing's gonna print out because there is no case for the empty string. However, if I want to have a default case, a case that is kind of like the else for my switch statement here, a match statement, what I do is the following. I do case underscore. I believe it's called the wildcard character. I'm not sure exactly what this is, but essentially when you do an underscore, that will match with anything. So in this case, if I go print, and then I just go not a case like that, and I run this, you're going to see that we get not a case. Didn't mean to open that new file. So that is how you do the default case. Now, this seems interesting. This is cool, but this is just like any other switch statement at this point in time. Now I'm going to show you some cool examples. So let me remove this here. In fact, let me get rid of all of this. I'm going to bring in an example that I have on my other screen here. It's called example 2. Really, this should be example 1, but you get the idea. So this is something that you can actually do with the match statement. It looks a little bit overwhelming, but I'll walk you through it right here. So I have a function called example 2, and notice we're matching on chords. Now, chords is meant to be coordinates, and we're meant to accept a tuple. Now, what I can actually do here is I can check if this tuple is equal to 0, 0. That's pretty much the same thing I showed you before. If that's the case, I print origin. However, what I also can do is check parts of this tuple. So I can say, okay, is the first element 0? And is the second element anything? That's kind of what this is saying right here. I'm saying, let's check if the first element is 0, and then the second element will represent by y, and all we care about is the fact that y exists, that we have some second element. And if that's the case, we have 0 as the first element, and we have some second element, that second element will actually get assigned to the variable y. So to show you a really simple example here, let's just zoom out a little bit. If I go example underscore 2, and then I pass a 0 and a 1, notice you're going to see we get vertical line at y equals 1. So it prints out the value of the second element in my tuple. Now, same thing works here. We have x 0. So we check if we have some value for x, and then we have a 0. So let's swap this around. Let's go 1, 0. Notice we get horizontal line at x equals 1. Now, where it starts to get a little bit more advanced is right here at this case. So for this case, I have x comma y if x equals y. Now, this is formally called a guard, and what this means is we're going to check this condition before we get into this case. So we're saying, do we have a tuple that has 2 elements? If we do, assign the first element to x, assign the second element to y, and then if x is equal to y, print x equals y. So let's test that, and let's go 1, 1, like that. Notice that we get x equals y. All right. Now, we also can do this one right here. So x, y, if the ABS of x is equal to the ABS of y. So if this case I go -1, 1, you're going to see that we get the absolute value of x equals the absolute value of y. And then notice here I've used 2 wildcards. So what this is saying is, do I have 2 elements in a tuple? If I do, we just print, okay, these are valid coordinates. So let's do something that's not the case there. So -2 and 1. And we get valid chords. And then of course we have our default case right here. So if I just do, some random value, let's just go with a string like a, we get invalid coordinates because this again matches with anything. So there you go. That is the second example, kind of showing you the power of the match case here, right? We can check parts of, in this example, a tuple, but we also could check just like more advanced patterns in general. Like these are relatively simple patterns, but I'm going to show you how we can do some even more complicated ones. So let me remove this and let me bring in my example 3. And this example has some more advanced stuff that uses an iterable, which is a list. Although a tuple is an iterable as well, but hopefully you get the idea. All right, so let's just have a look at this right here. So what we can actually do is we can check if we have an element in our list. Now, that's similar to what we did with the tuples, but this just checks if we have at least 1 element. Doesn't care what the element is. If we have, not at least. If we have exactly 1 element, then we print 1 element. Now here, same thing, 2 elements, right? If we have exactly 2 elements, we print 2 elements. Now here, I'm checking if I have 3 elements, but I'm assigning their values to x, y, and z, printing out those 3 values. And here is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? I have x, y, comma, z, asterisk, a. Now, if you haven't seen star args and star quargs before, essentially what this allows you to do is accept unlimited arguments coming after this. So really, as this says right here, this is going to be 3 or more elements. So you have to have at least 3 elements, but we can accept any more than 3 elements here, and then we'll match that case. So if you have at least 3 elements, and then any other number of elements, it could be 0 elements, it could be 25 more elements, they'll all get stored in A. And in fact, I can print out A here and show you how that works in a second. And then lastly here, we go to this one. So x, y, z underscore comma a. So now what this one is saying is, okay, you must have 4 elements. We're going to store the first 3 elements in x, y, and z, and then we'll accept any number of elements after that in the list. Okay. And then finally, we have our default case. So if we don't match any of these, we will automatically match with this one. And of course, you don't need the default case. Okay. So let me show you this case right here. So if I go to example 3 and I pass the list as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that, see that we end up getting here 3 elements or more, and then it shows us the 3 last elements that get stored in value A, or in variable A. Now notice here that this case didn't get matched, even though we had 4 elements and then we had 2 more elements coming after. The reason this case didn't get matched is because this one is always going to be matched before this case. So if we want this case to exist, we need to actually move it above this case here, because this will always, this will always match anything that this case matches. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, but this is saying 3 elements or more. This is 4 elements or more. So if we have 4 elements or more, we'll always match with the case 3 elements or more, sorry. So now if I move this case up here, like that, and I run this, we get 4 elements or more. There you go. Now, there's some more stuff that you can do with this, but I'm going to let you guys explore that for yourself. But this is kind of all I wanted to show you in this video, how this match statement works. This is a very powerful thing. You can write some really interesting code with this, and I just think it makes it way more readable too when you're trying to check specifically one variable and see what value it is, or check, more advanced stuff like this, like how many elements it has. You get the idea. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another one.